Good morning, children. Today we are going to continue with Civics Chapter 3, Democracy in Action. In the previous class, we have discussed about universal adult franchise, and we also discussed about the elections and what is secret ballot. In today's class, we are going to discuss about what are the process of elections and what are the processes in which the elections are being held. So let's start with the process of elections in India. In every country we have or it has own system to proceed an election. In India, whenever a new Lok Sabha or a state assembly is to be elected, or if a by election is to be held, the election commission draws a program of election and announces it. So what is the first step it happens when there is a election? The President of India issues a notification calling upon the people to elect their representatives to constitute a new Lok Sabha. In the same way, Governor issues a notification to elect legislative assemblies in the state, and the Election Commission announces the election schedule for filing nomination paper, scrutiny of nomination, withdrawal of candidature, and date of the polling. That means any candidate or a person who wants to stand for election, that is for a state or for an area, they have to file the nomination file. That means they will give that I am going to stand for this election and these are my names and I am going to do that. So this first step, in this picture you can see a flow chart is being seen there. Filing of nomination, that means he will enter. That is when you are getting an admission in a school, what you file a nomination that I want to take an admission. In the same way, when there is election, a person who want to get a nomination, that means he want to stand for the election, he will also have to file a nomination. He will also administer that I am going to take an admission in the politics, that is my form. And the second one, the Election Commission will analyze the person, whether the person's whatever he has written, whether it is true or not. He will just check it whether the evidences which he has given to elect as a MP, or you have can say a minister or anything, whether he is capable or not, whether he is not having any criminal background, whether if he has killed someone, if he has murdered someone, if he have taken someone money or bankrupt or anything, then he is not able to have an election. He will not be able to stand for the election. So everything will be analyzed by the Election Commission, that okay, you can stand for the election, your paperwork was nicely well developed, there was no problem in the verification, then only that person will be standing for the election. In the third step, the person has been elected, okay, you will be standing for the election. Then they will start the publication of the political party. So when there is an election, what happens? Every political party at your home, if you have seen visited, if you have seen that some people will come in a group and they will give slogans to vote their party. They will say these are my aims, this is the signboard, this is the symbols, everything they will be telling you that to vote to us so that we can have a benefit and we can have a good government. So they will give a promises, whatever it is, they will do the campaign, they will show their symbols that we have been given by the Election Commission this symbol, so you vote for us, and if we will win, our government will come and we will fulfill your dreams, whatever we have said and whatever the things we have promised. So that is the campaigning for the election. In the fourth one, it is the date when it will be announced. That means at this date every adult, or you can say every person above the age of 18 and above will go for voting, and there we will be having a EVM machine in which all the signs will be written, and which person which we want to elect, we have to press a button in there. So in that voting day we have to go and just have the vote and come back to your home. Then the next is, in the fifth one we will have a voting. The day will be announced in which there will be counting of votes. That means a day, specific date is fixed, that in this day we will be having the counting of the votes, and whoever will be the winning, they will have to form a government. So in the fifth we have the vote counting, and the result will be declared, that who has won the party. Different parties come together, or they are alone, which one is the victory, which is the loser, everything will be declared in the result. And then in the sixth one we will be seeing that after winning they will be forming the party, they will be the ruling party, they will be forming it. So in the same way we have in the central also, as well as we have in the state also, every person is free to elect any person, its own representative, whom you want to give the vote, whether you want to give to the party to BJP, whether you want to give the vote to Congress, whether you want to give the vote to JMM, any person can give vote to anyone. So this is the process in which India's election is being held. Moving to the other voting process, there are two processes which are being formed, or you can say system in which they vote. The first one we have the simple majority, and the second one we have the absolute majority. In the simple majority means securing the highest number of votes. For example, there are three candidates A, B and C, and A has scored maximum of 15 votes, and it is of total number of votes it was 20, but he has got 15, that means, and other they have got less votes, that means he has got simple majority, that means he has scored maximum amount of votes in that area. So that will considered as a simple majority votes. In the second one we have the absolute majority. It means securing more than half of the total votes polled. That means if the total vote is 20, and if that person has got 14 and others they have got less, but that will considered as a absolute majority, that means in that particular area he has got the maximum, half of the vote he has been pulled on, that will be called as the absolute majority. And this is mostly commonly system of election, and it is used in our Lok Sabha, that is simple majority system, that is used in our Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha, that is simple majority system. But you cannot say as simple majority system as absolute majority is as different. Absolute majority is little bit different, that means securing more than half of the total votes polled, that is called as absolute majority system. Moving to the constituency, that means here electoral constituency refers to a territorial area which elects and sends one representative either to the parliament or to the state assembly. Here means a candidate will be selected to which he will represent that particular area. So that is called as the electoral constituency. For example, we can say an MP represent as a parliament constituency in the Lok Sabha, while the MLA represent the assembly constituency in Vidhan Sabha. That means a person will be elected and that will represent our country, or you can say our state in the country. There are different officers are being appointed in the election duty when there is election. So we know that our independent body which has the responsibility to conduct free election and fair election is what is an Election Commission of India. So Election Commission of India is headed by the Chief Election Commission, that is CEC, who is being appointed by the President. And in the CEC there are various commissions, state commissions, which are responsible for the election irrespective of their state. In the same way, the returning officer appointed by the Election Commission is the main officer responsible for conducting election. So Election Commission of India is headed by whom? By the Chief Election Commissioner, who is been appointed by the President, and he appoints the returning officer, who is appointed by Election Commission, and he is responsible for conducting election. And in every polling booth, that means where the voters are going to cast their vote, that is called as polling booth. Okay, so each polling booth will have a 5 officers. Okay, and the 5 officers are being given in charge to a single head, that is presiding officer. Okay, presiding officer is the in charge of the booth. If in a particular area a person is there, for example in our school Holy Cross, if there is it has been made a booth, so one officer, that is presiding officer, will be the in charge of that booth, and 4 more person will be looking after the polling officers. That means they will be calling as a polling officer. They will be also looking after the 4 areas in 4 ways in which the polling booths are being conducted. And there will be others also who will be assisting the officers, and they were having policemen also, so that it will have a maintain order and law. So we have seen it also, when there is an election in any particular area, what happens, a police force is being also being seen here, so that it will help us to have a maintain law and order and have a peaceful voting. Okay, so these are the officers which are on the election duty. Moving to the different types of elections in India, there are 3 types of elections which are done in India, that is general election, then we have by-election, we have mid-election. Here general election is used when election take place all over the country or in a state to constitute a new legislature to make laws. Okay, legislature here means to make laws. Okay, so general election is used when the election takes place all over the country or in a state to constitute a new legislature, and it is seen in many of the areas in India. The country elections are being also done, and they are also called as Parliament or Lok Sabha election, and when it is in the state wise election, it is called as Assembly or Vidhan Sabha election. So in India, elections are divided into 2 parts, that is when it is about the Parliament or Lok Sabha election, and in the state wise, that we have the Assembly or Vidhan Sabha. When it is central, we have Parliament, remember that. And what happens there, if there is in the Parliament, if the members or in the state legislature dies or resign before the completion of the term, that means if the governing party is having a 5 years, and if before the 5 years or in the 3rd year someone resigns, if that candidate resigns or dies, then there is another election which is called as the by-election. That means it will be held only for the time period, that is for the completion of the time period, that is for 2 years the person will be elected. Then election is held to fill that particular seat, that is called as the by-election. So there is a difference between general election and by-election. First one is, elections are held in all constituencies at the same time, either on the same day or within a few days. This is called as the general election. By-election, election is held only by one constituency to fill the vacancy caused by the death or resignation of a member. This is called as by-election. General election, that is all country will be involved in the election. But in by election, not the whole country but only few people will be engaged in the election. That means if a person resign, then the party will have an election in that, and they will select a candidate for the post. In the general election, elections are held regularly after 5 years, and in the by election, election is held before the expiry of 6 months from the date the seat falls vacant. Okay, it is before the expiry of 6 months, that is when it is going to complete his term. Before that, 6 months before, it has to have an election, by election. In the general election, we have the representatives affected in general election is generally elected for a full term of 5 years and not for remaining period of the house. That means in the general election, if any candidate has been elected, it is for 5 years. It is not for the half year. It is that means for the full term of 5 years. Whereas in the by election, it is for the representative elected by election is elected for the remaining period of the house, not for 5 years. That means if a person dies, that person will be selected to fulfill the other part of the term. That means if the person has not completed 5 years and he dies before 2 years, then he will join that and he will complete the term, the governing party. What is midterm election? Here the Lok Sabha or the state assembly may be dissolved before in its term of 5 years, or is before the mid poll is required to constitute a new house, and this is called as a we can say midterm election, or you can say a type of general election. That means sometimes a government fails to do something and it falls, then again there is a election happens. That is also a type of general election, or we can say as a midterm election, but many people prefer to tell as it is a midterm election. So moving to the other features, there are different parties when there is an election. There are different types of parties formed when there is a election. So we will do this political parties in the next class. Okay, so we have dealt about the what are the features, that is what is simple majority, what is the processes of election, what are the officers who are being appointed in the election, and what is the processes or election which is held in our India, and we will do the political parties in the next class. Thank you.